No more bullshit. No more bullshit.
Now at noon, breaking news. At least 2 people are killed and 6 people injured in a school shooting in Madison, Wisconsin. Police confirm the shooter is also dead. Thanks for joining us for the KTLA 5 News at noon. I'm Glenn Walker.
And I'm Lou Parker. Police say the suspected gunman was a juvenile and also a student at Abundant Life Christian School.
KTLA 5 Samantha Cortese has been following the developments. She joins us now live from the newsroom with the latest. Samantha?
Hi, Glenn and Lou. I was just watching the local news there in Madison as it looks like elementary school students were getting off a bus at a safe center, getting some pizza for the day, as this reportedly happened as some students would have been going to lunch. The police chief in Madison said his staff just trained for an active shooter 2 weeks ago. Today, just before 9 a.m. our time, police believe a student opened fire at the Abundant Life Christian School in Madison, Wisconsin. It's a kindergarten through 12th grade private Christian school. Officers from around the state and county responded immediately and entered the school.
Officers located a juvenile who they believe was responsible for this deceased in the building. Additionally, the officers began administering life-saving efforts to anyone who was wounded and making sure that those persons were transported.
As of right now, 3 people are reported dead, including the shooter. One of those people is under the age of 18, according to police. 6 others were injured. The University of Wisconsin Health Hospital reports treating those patients. Authorities say victims are suffering minor to life-threatening injuries. Police did not report on the age, gender, or motive of the shooter. Madison Police Chief Sean Barnes said this is something the department trains for, but hopes they never have to do.
Wrap tonight, law enforcement sources here in Madison say that police were able to clear that school in a matter of minutes. Firefighters say they were able to get the injured students to hospitals in 15 minutes. But now tonight, nearly 7 hours after that shooting, there are parents who are still reuniting with their children for the first time. Ambulances screamed through the streets of Wisconsin's capital city. Once again, gunshots had echoed through another American classroom. This time inside a small Christian school.
This is not a place that any fire chief or any one of us would ever want to be. And I can't believe I'm standing here today talking about this incident.
Moments before 11 a.m., police say a teenage student armed with a handgun took aim at fellow classmates and teachers at Abundant Life Christian School. Hundreds of students inside the school ducked for safety.
We went out the side of the building to the church. Yeah.
Did you have any idea what was going on? Did you know it was a shooting?
I guess so, because I saw around... When we went outside, there was a cop with a massive gun, so I guess I kind of knew it was a shooting.
All too familiar images of panicked parents racing to their children's school, desperate to hold them, played out outside the K-12 academy. Freshly trained police officers and firefighters raced into the school, not knowing exactly what they might encounter.
It's hard for me to place into words what they ran into.
Our commanders, including the fire chief and I, was in a commander's training less than 2 weeks ago, going over this exact same scenario for another fictional location. And so all of that came into play today. Stop the threat, stop the killing, find the threat.
By the time they got there, police say the shooter was already dead.
I just pulled up here a little bit ago, but my mom, obviously, she lives nearby and she watches my kids. So she did give me a call that she saw a ton of police, and obviously my daughter goes here and my nieces and nephews, my sister. So she called me on the phone. She told me, please remain calm. So I was already trying to mentally prepare. But yeah, after a bit, I was kind of like, okay. And she's like, there is an active shooter at the school. She had like an inside source kind of tell her. And I just bolted out, drove down here. I called my husband, and he made his way over here. Obviously, I couldn't get in, but I went around the back to my mom's house and talked with her. And like I said, my sister is involved with the school, so I was able to get a little bit of an inside take on what was going on, but she did tell me that they were okay.
Evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Dee Dee Gatton, and tonight the Madison, Wisconsin community is in mourning after a teacher and student were killed in a shooting at a Christian school. Police say the shooter also died. Let's get straight over to Jeff Harris at the Live Desk, and police just shared an update. Jeff, what are you learning?
We've now learned that the suspected shooter is 15-year-old Samantha RUPNOW, who you see right here on the left-hand portion of your screen. A teacher and a student are now dead. 6 others were hurt. Police say she planned the attack in advance. Police are now combing through her family's home, already confirming they found a manifesto planning this crime. Police say a handgun was used in this shooting. A second-grade student was the first to call 911. Within minutes, police arrived and found the suspect dead with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Now police are trying to trace that handgun.
I was getting ready for lunch, so it was basically lunchtime, and then I just heard sobbing, and there was a teacher, and she was screaming like, "Ah, my leg, help, help."
Do you know that teacher well?
Mm-hmm.
What was it like to hear that? Were you scared?
I was really scared, and I was really sad.
Now, the school doesn't have metal detectors nor resource officers. School officials say they had trained earlier this year about what to do during an active shooter situation. As of right now, the identities of the victims have not yet been released. 6 others were injured, including 2 students who are still fighting for their lives tonight. A vigil is scheduled for tomorrow.
Mysterious drones continue to fly over New York and New Jersey with few answers coming from the Biden administration. How is it possible that the Pentagon doesn't know? I'm not buying it. Local government officials continue to evade answers as far as the origin of these drones. They're being compared to the Chinese spy balloon that flew across the entire country last year. Meanwhile, a Chinese citizen living in Los Angeles is under arrest this morning for allegedly using a drone to take images of Vandenberg Space Force Base in Santa Barbara County. Joining me now is Gatestone Institute senior fellow and the author of Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America, Gordon Chang, back with us. Gordon, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. What is your reaction to these drones? Do you think these drones are Chinese drones surveilling America?
These drones and this activity is too large, too well organized to be the work of lobbyists. And that sort of leaves foreign powers. And it could be Iran in connection with China. But clearly somebody is trying to absorb our attention. And Maria, the thing that really worries me is that if they're trying to draw our attention to these drones, the question is, what are they doing elsewhere in our country?
Well, I mean, this has been weeks. You know, at this point, it's really not right that the Pentagon has not given us more information as far as these drones are concerned. Of course, everyone's going to just start speculating. We need some real answers from the Pentagon to really understand what's going on. I mean, the fact that China is surveilling America is not a secret. Everyone knows that that the surveillance programs are in place, and they're once again around our military bases. But we're not getting any answers from anybody.
Sabrina, can you tell me what the Pentagon is doing to address this issue of drone sightings over New Jersey? It's near sensitive installations. The FBI is involved. What is the Pentagon doing?
Sure. So at this time, aware of those drone sightings that have been reported, at this time we have no evidence that these activities are coming from a foreign entity or the work of an adversary. We're going to continue to monitor what is happening, but at no point were our installations threatened when this activity was occurring.
Can you rule out that these are American drones or U.S. military drones?
These are not U.S. military drones. Again, this is being investigated by local law enforcement. What our initial assessment here is that these are not drones or activities coming from a foreign entity or adversary.
Former Governor Larry Hogan shot this video last night. These lights over his hometown in Davidsonville, just 25 miles from the nation's capital, as he pointed out. And then there's this.
I've never seen that before. Wow, they just passed each other. Yeah, I've never seen that before.
New Jersey Senator Andy Kim shared this video of drones he shot yesterday. Federal authorities insist most of these sightings are actually legally manned aircraft. But Senator Kim says he checked a flight tracker app while capturing this video and that the devices he was capturing were not on it. The sightings are happening near LaGuardia Airport, too. Officials say they received unconfirmed reports of drone activity over that busy airport. As for numbers, the FBI says it's received more than 3,000 tips from the public about drone sightings going back to November 18th, all over New Jersey. Since then, there's been an average of 92 sightings per night and expanding across half a dozen states.
Joining me now is News Nation national security contributor Tracy Walder. We have her very often using her CIA expertise to help us understand cases, but she was also a drone pilot. Okay, so pretty good credential for tonight. And News Nation special correspondent Ross Coulthard, who spends so much time talking to sources on the inside about exactly these kinds of capabilities. He's got a great special that you're going to want to see tomorrow night called Drones Over New Jersey. It's good to have both of you. Now, I don't have any problem with what the congressman just said. I think he did a better job than most people in government I've heard. But Tracy, some of these are big, these drones, like too big to be something that you're buying commercially. And I don't think it's absurd to think that you'd have to run across a field to track them to know where they're landing. I mean, they caught the Chinese guy, right, that they just found at the airport.
Right, you're absolutely right, Chris. Thank you so much for having me. And I actually wholeheartedly agree with the congressman. One of the things that sort of piqued my interest about this is he talked about that Picatinny Arsenal that's close by, as well as McGuire Air Force Base. One of the things that they recently did this past summer is successfully tested battery-powered fixed-wing aircraft to deliver cargo between bases. And it is a larger type of drone. It looks very much like an airplane, but obviously is a bit smaller. And so part of me wonders if this could be what individuals are seeing. But to your point, obviously, as someone who worked in, I guess, the depths of our government at the CIA, you know, I get it. When you feel that the government is not being forthcoming and not being honest, I don't believe these are a threat. It's scary. And I do think they need to come clean with the American people about what these are.
Good evening. I'm Jessica Moore. The number of drone sightings across the tri-state area has been growing over the last 2 weeks, with more than 3,000 reports in New Jersey alone. And with no indication the sightings are coming to an end, local and state officials are becoming increasingly impatient for answers. As Alicia Reed explains, they also want authorities to destroy any drones that may be considered a threat.
It's smooth sailing at New York Stewart International Airport Saturday night, unlike the nearly hour-long delay the evening prior after a drone in the airspace stopped all flights.
It's always a nuisance.
Drones have been spotted throughout the tri-state since mid-November. The FBI says they've received about 5,000 leads since then.
It's not good.
Only about 100 have led to action by the FBI. In a statement, Governor Kathy Hochul says in part, this has gone too far. She's calling on Congress to pass a bill that will strengthen the FAA's oversight of drones and give select state and local law enforcement agencies the right to detect, track, or even destroy unmanned aircraft systems, or UAS. New Jersey Congressman Chris Smith plans to introduce legislation that would authorize training for state police across the country to track and take down drones.
State police, probably a designated unit could be established, have real experts.
Over 50 local, state, and federal partners have engaged in the investigation, including the FBI, DHS, and FAA. A rep from the Department of Homeland Security says they're confident many of the sightings are manned aircrafts that are being misidentified as drones. The FAA says it is legal to fly a drone during the day or at night, as long as it's below 400 feet and isn't causing a hazard. But restricting airspace is a problem, and that happened here.
The federal government now says that what is believed to be drones are actually manned aircrafts. Really? The Defense Department acknowledging there's been sightings of drones over 2 military installations in New Jersey. Now, Homeland officials, they're saying that federal authorities are taking action and deploying extra resources.
There's no question that people are seeing drones, and I want to assure the American public that we in the federal government have deployed additional resources, personnel, technology to assist the New Jersey State Police in addressing the drone sightings.
A lot of Americans are asking why, Mills, there's not a clear answer on these drones. They're fed up with the lack of transparency. So what more have you learned about what the secretary said on this issue?
Hey, Adrian. Well, Secretary Mayorkas once again reiterated that they know of no foreign involvement with these drones and they're not aware of any danger to the U.S. He says that the Department of Homeland Security is limited in their authority to disable these drones. He says that there are some agencies within the Department of Homeland Security and outside that department that can stop the drones, but Mayorkas says those authorities need expanding.
The FAA forced to slow traffic at Stewart International Airport Friday night north of New York City because of multiple reports of drone sightings in the area. Mayor Eric Adams saying his team is taking the reports of drones in the region seriously.
We're going to have an immediate response. We're getting ready to check. We're getting ready to look into some new innovative ways of, if need be, to take down drones with the proper permission from the FAA.
And New York's Governor Kathy Hochul saying this has gone too far, demanding that the Biden administration step in by directing additional federal law enforcement to New York and the surrounding area. In Ocean County, New Jersey, the Sheriff's Department launching its own industrial drone after numerous reports of sightings in the area. One deputy reporting roughly 50 drones coming in over the ocean.
The facts are that they are very big objects in the sky. The fact is that's just concerning to us, is nobody has seen them land or take off.
Reports of drones flying near a naval weapons station in New Jersey as well.
And I did talk to the commander there. His men are seeing it right there at the base. Are you kidding me? A munitions depot of that caliber, and these drones are hovering in close proximity to it.
So on a call with reporters, officials from a wide range of agencies, including the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, the FAA, a Joint Chiefs of Staff official confirmed those drone sightings at the naval station, but added that they do not believe that they are from a foreign actor or have malicious intent.
We don't see any concern for public safety. That's number one. Number two, having said that, it's really frustrating that we don't have more answers as to where they're coming from and why they're doing what they're doing.
At this time, we have no evidence that these activities are coming from a foreign entity or the work of an adversary.
We have no evidence at this time that the reported drone sightings pose a national security or a public safety threat or have a foreign nexus. The Department of Homeland Security and the FBI are investigating these sightings, and they're working closely with state and local law enforcement to provide resources.
President-elect Donald Trump even responding with a post on Truth Social suggesting officials shoot the suspected drones down if they can't determine their origin. News Nation's Mills Hayes tracking the very latest developments. Mills, what are we learning tonight?
Hey, good evening, Natasha. Well, these drone sightings are causing panic across the country as more states report seeing them in the sky and even over military installations.
People turning south from the freeway were startled when they saw 3 flying saucers high over Hollywood Boulevard.
Now I want to bring in New Jersey Assemblyman Brian Bergen, who attended a DHS briefing on these drone sightings. Also with us, Mike Frietta, an FAA drone pilot. Thank you both for being here with us. Assemblyman, you walked out of a Department of Homeland Security briefing about these drone sightings. So what did they tell you? Did they have any real answers?
No, at the time, they didn't have any answers. It was extremely frustrating. And, now we got other politicians and officials in the government trying to tell us that these aren't what we're seeing or like it's contributable to a 2023 rule change. And come on, you guys would have tons of people on right now saying that, oh, hey, I'm flying all these drones at night. Don't worry. But you don't, because that's not exactly what's happening. And the government doesn't know, and they refuse to give us any answers.
But how do you know that? How do you know that isn't what's happening? I know that you're hearing frustration and concern from your constituents, but do you have evidence that they are something nefarious and not what the government is saying is something not to worry about?
No, I don't have any evidence of that. But I mean, how many people do you have calling into MSNBC saying, hey, I was flying 5 6-foot drones last night over Denville. Don't worry about it. It's not happening. People, you would think by now, with the amount of news coverage that are, people would come out and say that they're doing these types of things. And by the way, these are large drones. The state police helicopter flew over a 6-foot drone. I mean, this is crazy stuff. This is not, very easily available stuff. This isn't off-the-shelf stuff that you buy at Best Buy. I mean, these are legitimate aircraft. It's very, very concerning. And, just reported today, there was an airport in Ohio that had to shut down, an airport up in Nuremberg that had to shut down for a period of time because of drones in their airspace. I mean, this is legitimate stuff that's happening, and they're not really giving it enough attention.
2 people were arrested in Boston over the weekend after allegedly flying drones right near Logan Airport.
Comes after weeks of drone sightings in New Jersey, sparking concerns over who sent them up, and prompting Governor Phil Murphy to write to President Biden looking for answers.
Sophia Szabo is live in studio this morning with the latest on these mysterious drone sightings. Sophia.
Good morning, Kate and Patrick. While the FBI and Homeland Security investigate the drone sightings across the East Coast, police are describing what happened on Saturday in Boston as a hazardous drone operation, with 3 people flying a drone into Logan Airport's airspace. 42-year-old Robert Duffy and 32-year-old Jeremy Falchuk of Bridgewater were arrested in one of the Boston Harbor Islands. Both men were charged with trespassing. Police say they believe the third suspect got away on a small boat, but they were able to track the suspects using the drone's location, altitude, and flight history. Airline pilots say many people don't realize the threat these drones pose to planes taking off and landing. They say even the smallest drone can cause catastrophic damage.
I don't want to say that it's just a matter of time before there's a collision between a commercial plane and a drone, but the likelihood is increasing.
Now, police say they are still investigating Saturday night's incident, and there is a chance that both Duffy and Falchuk will face additional charges. Meanwhile, federal agents say the mysterious drone sightings don't appear to be a threat to public safety. They are urging drone pilots to review federal aviation guidelines and understand the danger of flying in restricted areas.
How can I disprove lies that are stamped with an official seal? That will be all, Mr. Mulder. You can deny all the things I've seen, all the things I've discovered, but not for much longer. Because too many others know what's happening out there. And no one, no government agency has jurisdiction over the truth.
ABC News settling a defamation suit with President Trump, paying out $15 million, and the liberal media is losing it. Watch.
I do worry about the effect this could have on others. And the chilling effect it might have on people who otherwise would be critical of Donald Trump.
I got to think that the ABC boardroom was involved in this decision somehow. And my big worry, to put a finer point on what Barbara's saying, is it is somehow caught up in the fact that he's going to be president soon.
Joe Concha, though, says Trump is extending his winning streak with victory over ABC and Stephanopoulos.
Well, this is being called a big legal victory for President-elect Trump. ABC News agreeing to pay him $15 million to settle a defamation lawsuit. Trump sued ABC and anchor George Stephanopoulos, who inaccurately said on air that Trump was found civilly liable for raping writer E. Jean Carroll. The $15 million will go toward the Trump Presidential Library. Let's now bring in senior staff writer for TheHill.com, Alex Bolton. Alex, good morning to you. Hope you had a great weekend. Let me play a bit of sound off the top here for starters, because some in the media are really sounding the alarm over this settlement. Take a quick listen.
Trump and his team is going to be emboldened by this settlement, have shown they want to use the courts in order to achieve certain outcomes they want. In this case, they believe justice is being done by holding ABC accountable. Others would say this is a form of lawfare.
This feels like it has a real chilling effect. What George Stephanopoulos said in that interview, I mean, it seems to hold up with what the judge said after the fact.
Alex, will this have a chilling effect on the media, or is this denial that Stephanopoulos messed up in his language on his program?
Well, clearly Stephanopoulos messed up because he mischaracterized the verdict by saying that Trump was found liable for rape when, in fact, he was found liable for sexual assault. Big difference. And it was something that the judge in the case, Lewis Kaplan, clarified, that he pointed out explicitly that the New York Penal Code's definition of rape was far narrower than what Trump was found liable for. So certainly it was a mistake by Stephanopoulos. Now, does it rise to the level of a $15 million penalty? That's pretty steep. But I think what it does show is that media organizations aren't as confident as they were a decade ago. Even though the First Amendment is still there, public's perception of the media and journalists has gone down. Also, they don't really have the financial resources that they did a decade ago. It's a less financially stable industry than it was a decade ago. Clearly, less interested in waging a protracted legal battle with a very wealthy opponent. I think the other thing weighing on ABC's mind is that Dominion Voting Systems settlement against Fox News, $787 million. Yeah. Fox decided to fight that out with Dominion over claims related to the 2020 election. Through the discovery process, a lot of embarrassing information, text messages came out. I think it's clear that ABC, while it may have had a pretty strong case in court to beat the lawsuit, Trump's lawsuit, they didn't want to go through the protracted battle that could have opened up a can of worms.
President Biden has granted clemency to 3 Chinese nationals, including 2 convicted spies and a man found guilty of possessing tens of thousands of child pornography images as part of a prisoner swap with China. The third individual, Shan Lin-jin, a former doctoral student in Dallas, was convicted in 2021 for possessing over 47,000 child pornography images.
And now he's facing a ton of backlash, particularly for his decision to commute the sentence of one of the so-called kids for cash judges. And if you don't remember this story, this scam happened in Pennsylvania back in the 2010s. So here's some background. Michael Conahan and former Luzerne County President Judge Mark Ciavarella took part in a conspiracy that netted them $2.8 million, according to their federal indictment. They facilitated the construction of juvenile detention centers and expansion of another by agreeing to send convicted juveniles to them in exchange for the cash, according to the indictment. So they sent thousands of minors to prison, some as young as 8 years old, for reasons like petty theft, jaywalking, truancy, smoking on school grounds, and other relatively minor infractions. Ciavarella was convicted in February 2011 and sentenced to 28 years in prison, where he still is. Conahan was sentenced to 17.5 years in prison after pleading guilty to racketeering conspiracy. He was released to home confinement in June 2020 with 6 years remaining on his sentence. But now, thanks to Joe Biden, he is a free man. And people are understandably upset about the commutation, including those who were directly impacted by his scheme.
This deal is getting worse all the time.
We're following on some breaking news this morning as Crystal Magnum, the woman who accused 3 Duke lacrosse players of raping her in 2006, has confessed that she lied. In an interview from a North Carolina prison where Magnum is serving time for an unrelated second-degree murder conviction, admitted to lying about players sexually assaulting her at a team party where she was working as a stripper.
I testified falsely against them by saying that they raped me when they didn't. And that was wrong.
So it was a case that shocked the nation. Back in 2006, Mangum claimed 3 Duke lacrosse players raped her at a team party. So at the time, the team had hired 2 exotic dancers to perform at a party, and one of those dancers was Mangum. When she initially came forward with these accusations, all 3 players vehemently denied it, and they also provided alibis for the time of the alleged assault. Now, you'll remember, Nicole, Duke's lacrosse team was one of the best in the nation, and all of this completely upended their season. The team's coach was out of a job, the rest of the season was canceled, and the 3 men accused were suspended. Adding fuel to the fire, comments from the Durham County District Attorney Michael Nifong, who said there was no doubt the rape took place, adding that it was racially motivated. So what ended up happening? Well, the charges against the lacrosse players were dropped the following year. Nifong was disbarred for a number of ethics violations, including lying about withholding exculpatory DNA evidence. And in this recent interview, Nicole, Mangum also addressed why she made these accusations in the first place.
I betrayed the trust of a lot of other people who believed in me. And made up a story that wasn't true because I wanted validation from people and not from God.
So Mangum is currently serving a 14 to 18-year sentence for murdering her boyfriend. This was in 2011. She is asking for forgiveness now from the men she accused. We reached out to Duke University and those men. So far, no response.
After 18 years, the former stripper in the Duke lacrosse scandal admits she made it all up. Back in 2006, Crystal Mangum accused 3 Duke University lacrosse players of raping her at a team party where she performed. Today, she says she lied about it. It was a case that captivated the nation. The 3 students were charged with multiple counts despite the absence of concrete evidence. They were eventually exonerated, but their lives were forever changed. Robert Schulk is a defense attorney and former prosecutor. Bob, so let's walk through this with me. So she is currently in prison for second-degree murder of her boyfriend, but could she face any new charges connected to these false allegations?
Arthel, unfortunately, I don't think that she can. The statute of limitations for perjury has run for purposes of this state. So even though she admitted that she lied and she ruined the lives of 3 college kids, I don't see any possible criminal charges coming her way. And civilly, I mean, obviously, the 3 gentlemen, Mr. Seligman, Mr. Evans, and Mr. Finnerty, had a lawsuit against Duke University, which was settled for an undisclosed amount, and they've moved on with their lives. I mean, they're not going to bring a lawsuit against an individual who's incarcerated for murder, who likely doesn't have any assets, and likely they don't want to begin, bring these facts up again and going to court and fighting anything. I'm sure they've moved on with their lives, but again, at what cost? I mean, it cost them a great deal that an individual went to court and swore under oath that a rape occurred that never did.
Most people who have diabetes or pre-diabetic can be cured with good food. And if they choose instead to be cured by Ozempic, the government then pays $1,500 a month for the rest of their lives. And with a fraction of that, we could give everybody organic foods 3 meals a day in this country.
So The View co-host Whoopi Goldberg responded this way.
This isn't just about food.
No, it's not.
This is sometimes people are born genetically larger.
Agreed. I didn't mean to.
No, I know you didn't. But I want to say this to
RFK.
RFK? That's his name.
I think you're so childish.
No, I'm not. Because you're setting folks up for shame.
Yeah.
That's what you're trying. Maybe you don't know you're doing. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say you don't know, you don't realize what you do to people when you say stuff like that.
I think the fact that in America now we have an obesity epidemic, 40% of adults are obese, 20% of kids are obese, and that is directly related to the epidemic we have in diabetes. So you have millions and millions of people struggling with diabetes. Many of them are overweight, and it is costing us an estimated $400 billion a year to deal with diabetes, a huge amount of money. So it goes without saying that anybody with a brain in his or her head wants to deal with issues, get to the cause of the problem. And I think processed food and the kind of sugar and salt that we have in products that our kids and adults are ingesting is an important part of addressing that crisis. When Kennedy talks about an unhealthy society, he's right.
That's right, feel the burn. Because it doesn't work for everybody. And I'm going to show you, sir, because I weighed close to 300 less than 2 years ago.
There is nothing, I think, more unfortunate than to have soft, chubby, fat-looking children who go to watch their school play basketball every Saturday and regard that as their week's exercise.
At some point, if we don't change the way we care for ourselves as individuals, if we don't eat better and if we don't exercise, and really what we need to do in this country isn't transformational, it's really walking 30 minutes a day, maybe 5 days a week, and starting with your kids on a different set of habits. Those things will eliminate obesity and cut down on costs. I mean, we're spending about $120 billion additional dollars a year in our healthcare system as a result of these sort of chronic illnesses that you see that are connected to obesity. Now, we all know how important it is to eat less sugar and fat and more fruits and vegetables and whole grains. But today, between what's in our food and how much of it that we eat, Americans consume more calories, fat, and sugar today than ever before. Compared to 40 years ago, we consume 23% more calories, 56% more added fats and oils and dairy fat, and 14% more sugar and sweetener. Now that's 12 extra pounds of sugar a year, just in 40 years.
Obama.
On the inside.
Foreclosed that Tristan lost. Bold.
You would have thought after that dreadful loss, she blew over $1 billion, dreadful loss to Trump. The Democrats would just be shelving her
for stealing $1 billion with absolutely nothing to show for it. That's my thought. Sorry.
But apparently she's got her sights set on becoming California governor. Here's CNN on that.
What the likelihood is of Harris running for governor.
What she's been saying to people over the last couple of weeks, donors, other supporters that she's been talking with, is you haven't seen the last of me. I'm not going quietly into the night. Advisors, people close to her, are debating about what that means. They do not want her final official act ever to be essentially certifying Donald Trump's win over her, especially 4 years after January 6th. And so they look at this governor's race in California in 2026, and it seems to them like a layup, essentially, that she would probably clear the field, or mostly clear the field, and she would get to be governor of California. It's a pretty good job.
Relief.
You two take care of labor. Only intended for plane captains.
Well, Donald Trump has been announced as Time Magazine's Person of the Year. And a lot of people were surprised that Time Magazine still existed. Here's Editor-in-Chief Sam Jacobs making the announcement on NBC. And I have to say, he seemed almost embarrassed about it.
The person of the year who, for better or for worse, had the most influence on the news in 2024 is Donald Trump.
Okay, there it is. Donald Trump, 2024 Person of the Year.
He was almost apologetic. And as you can imagine, lefties weren't happy about Trump being on the cover, but they reacted in the calm and considered way that we've come to expect from the left.
But wait, there's more. It's not always been great people that have been on the cover of Time, right? It's been people like Joseph Stalin and Adolf Hitler and Khrushchev and Khomeini. So he's in that kind of company.
So did Barack Obama. So did Greta Thunberg. So did Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So did a whole bunch of other people who are Democrats.
What a bunch of dumbasses.
Yeah, really. Andrew McCarthy is interested in more than just a good. Listen, he's having no trouble.
Could you say it again?
He smell her in the water.
Well, all of Australia will remember Rachel Gunn, the Macquarie University lecturer turned Paris Olympian, for her astonishing breakdancing performance earlier in the year. Of course, she was widely ridiculed for the performance because it was so hilarious.
Did you eat a lot of paint chips when you were a kid?
In fact, it was so hilarious that Australian comedian Steph Broadbridge thought, you know what, it could make a good musical. And so on Saturday gone, there was meant to be in Sydney the premiere of Reagan, the musical, but literally hours before it was to be performed, Stephanie Broadbridge, the comedian, got contacted by Reagan's lawyers saying if the musical went ahead, they would be sued because apparently Reagan owns the kangaroo hop. That's right, the kangaroo dance moves belong to Rachel Gunn. Here's the performer explaining how her musical was not allowed to go ahead.
They also said I wasn't allowed to do the dance because she owns the kangaroo dance. That one did puzzle me. I mean, that's an Olympic level dance. How would I possibly be able to do that without any formal breakdancing training?
She's got a point.
Joe, you can't own the kangaroo hop, can you?
No, absolutely not. No. Oh, no, I can't afford that. I can't afford it. I can't afford the risk. I can't afford the risk.
The arrest of two local prominent realtors. The brothers are accused of drugging and raping women, and authorities say it was a family affair stretching into New York, too. Local 10's Christina Vasquez is live in Miami Beach with the chilling details. Christina.
And a warning, if you do have young ones at home or wherever you are watching this story will contain some sensitive information. Prosecutors are saying that these brothers had residences here in Miami Beach and New York, would frequently travel between them. They're now facing local charges and federal charges related to rape and sexual assault. The Alexander brothers, Alon, Oren, and Tal, and their cousin, Ohad Fisherman, were men of wealth, privilege, and prestige who investigators and prosecutors in Miami-Dade.
Today we are one step closer to obtaining justice.
Use their fame, their money, their power to create opportunities to commit sexual crimes.
And federal prosecutors in New York.
Alon Alexander, Oren Alexander, and Tal Alexander with sex trafficking offenses.
That were also serial sexual predators.
We all want to thank the three brave women who courageously came forward.
Arrested in Miami-Dade, luxury real estate brokers Alon and Oren, seen here being booked into TGK Correctional Center earlier today, also facing state charges. Fisherman is wanted on a charge related to holding a woman down in a Miami Beach residence in 2016 so Alon and Oren could take turns raping her.
Two prominent real estate brokers, Oren and Tal Alexander, as well as their brother Alon, have been indicted on sex trafficking charges in New York City. CBS News correspondent Chanel Call has more. Chanel, what can you tell us about the Alexander brothers and what they're charged with?
Well, these are really serious allegations, Lana. They're involving, as you mentioned, really high-profile real estate brokers, Tal and Oren Alexander, as well as their brother Alon Alexander. This was an 8-page indictment released by federal prosecutors earlier this afternoon. There were 3 incidents that were very explicitly detailed in that indictment. But basically, federal prosecutors are alleging that these 3 brothers were involved in a sex trafficking scheme that spanned over a decade, allegedly starting back in 2010, going all the way until at least 2021. And what prosecutors are saying happened, Lana, is that they had this scheme where they would lure women with these luxury trips to domestic and international locations. But upon arrival, women were often drugged and sexually assaulted. When we asked prosecutors today about a number of women, they wouldn't say how many women they believe were victimized by this scheme, but they say it's in the dozens. These are very serious charges, and prosecutors, Lana, today were saying if convicted, the brothers could face 15 years to life in prison.
Let's bring in Brian Spillane. He covers the food and beverage space at BofA Securities. Brian, we've obviously talked to you a lot in the past about chips and the prices of a lot of other things. So welcome. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So let's just start with, we have a couple of categories here. And in full disclosure, our dear producer Chelsea went shopping in Manhattan. So grain of salt, audience, and prepare for some real sticker shock. But you all know that directionally what we're capturing is directionally still kind of what's going on with food inflation today. Let's start with the Cheerios and the cereal because this was pretty shocking. So the price of the Cheerios box that we found in Manhattan, are you ready for this box of cereal? Was $9.99, okay? The store brand version was about half of the price. And I'm curious if you can kind of talk about what's been happening with those prices across the country more broadly.
Yeah, sure. So when we think about that price gap between the brands and store brands, the gap is still relatively wide versus what it's been historically. And you've seen market share gains for store brands, especially in categories like cereal, which are a lot more family oriented. However, what we are beginning to see is actions that brands are taking to close those price gaps, and some of it is promotional events, some of it is tweaking package sizes, but there is a focus on trying to bring that value equation back together, but it's a slow process.
So my parents were at the grocery store the other day, and they said, what's going on with the Doritos? And this was at Acme. If you bought 4 bags, you got some crazy deal on them, but you had to buy 4. Are they all of a sudden trying to get rid of this stuff in bulk?
Well, some of that is partly trying to probably move some inventory, because one of the things we've really observed over the last year is consumers don't respond to that bulk purchase. Maybe around a holiday period, you're buying for 4th of July, or you're holding a Thanksgiving party. But generally, those types of promotions, which were very, very effective in the past, really aren't, because it's the cash outlay of whatever it would be, $15 or $20 for 4 bags of Doritos.
Yeah, we had talked about how the average price of a bag of chips in this country had gone to about $6.60. Yeah. That was one of the reasons you said be a little bit wary of stocks like Pepsi. At some point, they might have to start cutting prices. Are we seeing price cuts, broadly speaking, from the highs? And is that pressuring some of these consumer staples names?
Right. It's still, I would say price cuts is probably not a great, we haven't gotten to that point
We're not there yet.
Yeah,
Okay.
Exactly. But where we are is sharpening promotions. So we're seeing maybe when in promotional periods, more depth. I think when we go into next year, you're going to see a lot more of attention of price promotions around holiday periods. Think about the Super Bowl, Easter, summer holidays, because there's a lot of volume that moves in that time frame, and that's where you can move, where these companies can move volume.
What matters is that we're about to have a president who's the corner man for business. Even if he singles out some actors who he thinks are doing the wrong things, he favors higher stock prices, just like Reagan, who famously said he wanted the bears to be in permanent hibernation. Sounds strange, but that matters. We never saw Joe Biden on the floor of the stock exchange, did we? From my dealings with him from the old Kudlow and Kramer days on CNBC, a political and business show, he simply didn't care about the market. Hey, many don't. Given that my whole ethos is about trying to get regular people to be rich via the stock market, I always viewed Biden's view as needlessly antithetical to creating wealth. Would it have been so hard for Biden to come to the New York Stock Exchange and ring the opening bell? Would it have been so hard? I think the answer would have been yes, absolutely it would have been too hard. The legacy of this departing president could have been that he helped create wealth for the huge number of people in this country through their savings, their 401ks, their IRAs, their pensions. The averages certainly demonstrated that. He could have laid claim to it. Tens of millions of people benefited from the market during his tenure. But then Biden would have been able to be true to his assistant attorney general for antitrust, hammering of Apple, hammering Alphabet. He would have been on the other side of the trade from the FTC's endless harassment of Amazon and its recent investigation of Microsoft. More importantly, it might have threatened his self-image as a champion of the working man. Or to put it another way, here's what I heard when I walked on the floor this morning. Stocks went up these last 4 years despite Biden, despite him. If they go up the next 4 years, they will, at least in part, do so because of Trump.
So the amazing run-up that we've seen in many different cryptocurrencies, but namely Bitcoin, over the last few months, has been on hopes of a Trump administration that is more lenient when it comes to regulations. So that's the hope. Now the administration has to deliver. What do you want to see?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, we even saw it yesterday with Trump at the New York Stock Exchange. He mentioned that he wants the United States to be the #1 leader in cryptocurrency in the world. That's a very different narrative than what we've seen in the last 4 years. We've also seen the Trump administration anchor on this 150K Bitcoin price. And so we've seen, markets respond to that. We've seen a lot of option call buyers with March 2025 expiries. And so really a lot of people, as you mentioned, are kind of basing their expectation on a much more favorable administration. Now, that can be many subsets. We see Paul Atkins coming in as the SEC chairman and commissioner, and that is going to be very positive for crypto companies that are centralized. We still need to see what that means for decentralized finance as well, especially as it pertains to KYC and sanctions. But overall, it really does mean that the narrative is front and center, and you're seeing that momentum in ETF inflows.
Does it seem like it could become the Wild West to you?
We're very much hoping that we're actually going to get very clear guidelines. And I think that's one of the main pieces of also having a role within the White House that is focused on crypto. You have David Sachs, who's going to be spearheading a lot of that. And what we're actually looking to get from that, he's invested in a bunch of these companies, is actually rules and regulations on what we need to do.
Do you see that as a conflict of interest, that he's invested in a lot of these companies, but he's going to help advise the president and at least people in the White House on making rules around these?
I think you could probably say that about, a couple people that, are advising in the administration. But that said, you still need to have all of this get approved by Congress. You need to have it approved also on a state level. And so you're seeing a lot of states actually start to jumpstart this. And so you're seeing states such as Texas, most recently this week, say that they want to have Bitcoin as a reserve currency for the state. The U.S. has spoken about it. You're seeing a number of states now, 4, actually say that they're going to go ahead and do that. And so I think you'll see a lot of the checks and balances on both a state and federal level, and we're excited to see that play out.
Melissa, I know that Scott Turner is one of the names just recently nominated. He's an NFL player turned lawmaker turned pastor. He's worked in the previous administration. Scott Turner, nominated for HUD secretary following in Ben Carson's shoes. What do you think about this choice, especially as affordable housing is one of Americans' top concerns?
Listen, I think that he's going to have a difficult road to hoe, particularly when you've got Elon Musk and others saying that they're going to come in and gut the federal government. Affordable housing, the affordability crisis as it relates to housing in general is crushing the American people. And so how is he going to prioritize what the agency is going to focus on? And is he going to have the resources necessary to get it done when everyone is just saying cut, cut, cut? So it'll be interesting to see how his confirmation hearings go and what his vision is, but he's got a deck stacked against him.
But you must get questions, I'm guessing, Jay, from clients when they ask you about tariffs. Well, are you in the camp that, listen, it's a negotiating tactic?
Well, that's part of it. But what everybody ignores, because this is a little bit of a talking point left over from the election, and a lot of the economists that are writing about this are Democrats, like Alan Blinder in the Journal. But what everybody ignores is you get proceeds from the tax. It's basically a partial VAT. So that's good for long-term growth and investment because you have a lower budget deficit or gives you firepower to cut corporate taxes. So it's actually, in the long run, a positive thing, and it doesn't really increase inflation from a technical perspective. Inflation is ongoing increases, which only really comes from the monetary sector, from increasing the money supply. It's a one-time hit, and that is going to show up a little bit in CPI, and it's not great for some consumers, to be fair. I'm not the biggest advocate of it, but I think everybody's missing that there's a long-term effect that's positive. Like if Trump came out and said we're going to have a 15% VAT and pay for a gigantic corporate tax credit and lower the deficit, that would be good. Of course, the prices would go up at one time and people wouldn't be too happy about that, so it won't happen.
A shakeup in Tallahassee tonight. In a shocking move, State Representative Susan Valdez has switched political parties. Tonight, she is listed as a Republican on the State House website. This comes just weeks after she won re-election as a Democrat and just days after a failed bid to lead Hillsborough County's Democratic Party. In a statement on X, she said, quote, "I will not waste my final 2 years in the Florida legislature being ignored in a caucus whose leadership expects me to ignore the needs of my community."
All right, so earlier today I was reporting outside these prison walls when all of a sudden I heard my name and I couldn't tell if they were, catcalling me or heckling me or even saying my name whatsoever. And so I started reporting on Luigi Mangioni's prison conditions as I was finding them out. And as soon as the live shot was over, that's when I turned around and they said, "The conditions suck." And so that was my confirmation. Oh my gosh, they're watching News Nation at that very moment. I pulled out my camera, I recorded, and here's more of that interaction. Take a look from earlier today.
And that's the game!
You've disconnected from the hive mind.
Explain.